Good morning. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's case. The date is September 24th, 2025, and this is case DCI2022-00054. It's a rezoning request to the IPD zoning district for property off of Bucks Lane. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide is the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. We do not have members of the public here today, so I'll dispense with those instructions. We can begin with the applicant after I receive and just confirm, just for 1 second. Shram, I believe you provided me the affidavit of publication. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
I forwarded.
In the 48-hour letter. Okay, so I do have that on record, so we can begin whenever the applicant is ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning, Terry Kramer for the record. Presentation to enter into evidence as
Okay.
on Exhibit 1 or Exhibit A.
Yes, thank you. Let me check. We have a 48-hour letter, so that was applicant exhibit 1, so this will be applicant exhibit 2.
Okay, great. Real quick, just introduction. So as you stated, this is dealing with the rezone request from Ag 2 to IPD on Bucks Lane. Bucks Lane, if you're not familiar with this, is close by to Alico Road. With me, I have Jeff Hurley from ECS, Environment Consultant, and then Cindy Leal, planner, and then Brian Smith from Insight as our consultants here today. I just wanted to briefly discuss, I was in front of you this year, I think. This is the one that has all the code cases. So this is like step 1 of many to get through so that we can correct all the code cases. If we get through this, then we have to do some development orders and stuff like that, but this is the next step. But thank you. If you have any questions for me.
Not at this time, no, thank
All
you.
right.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Leal Brizuela. I am a principal planner at Insight, and I have my resume on file with the hearing examiner's office. I am requesting to be qualified as an expert witness in land use planning, specifically the Lee LDC and the Lee Plan.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The subject property is just over 14 acres, and it is located north of Bucks Lane, which is a little north of Alico Road, as you can see on this exhibit. The future land use is industrial, and the zoning is currently Ag 2. This is a request to rezone all 14 acres to IPD, which is what is cut off there. Okay, the LDC speaks to the intent of the IPD zoning district and describes the principal use as manufacture of goods and materials and the storage and wholesale distribution of such goods and materials. A little bit about this project. The original application for the rezoning was submitted back in November 14th of 2022. The applicant's representative changed November of 2024, so 2 years later. Insight went ahead and took over that case and made our first resubmittal on December 2024. We went ahead and made a couple alterations, including the schedule of uses, schedule of deviations, and master concept plan. So that is why there's a bit of a mix between documents from different applicants' representatives. Okay. A little bit about the surrounding land uses, and I do apologize that this got cut off a little bit here. To the north is vacant land that is also zoned AG2. It is in the urban community future land use. To the east and south and west are all IL and IPD properties. There's a bit of an assortment of different kinds of industrial uses between manufacturing and storage. And they are all in the industrial development future land use to the south of the property. Everything else surrounding the property is in the urban community future land use. This is the proposed schedule of uses. I'm not going to go through and list every single use on the schedule, but I did want to note that there is very limited processing in this list, and there is no manufacturing. And that kind of keeps in the IPD compatible with the surrounding light industrial land uses.
Just to confirm, I think you identified in your 48-hour letter there was a change in what was in the staff report for the schedule.
Yes, there were 2 items that had changed. One of them was, I believe, a car dealership that we are not proposing to include in the schedule of uses. And the other item that we weren't proposing.
So Self-service fuel pumps.
is self-service fuel pumps.
Okay, so those are not to be included, but you
Correct.
did want processing or packaging of agricultural or fish products?
Yes.
Okay. And is the intention then, I don't know if now's the time to address it, but will you go over the master concept plan at some point and just briefly describe how these uses will operate on the site?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. This is the proposed master concept plan. As you can see, it's significantly different from the first submittal. I'm just going to briefly go over some of these areas. What we are proposing with this concept plan is essentially, as you can see, the open space is the light green. The water management areas and the, does this have a laser? Yes, dark green here. And then we have our water management lake here. We have existing storage buildings here, 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 and here. These are the dark purple. And we are proposing covered storage along here, here. It's the light kind of beige, grayish color. And the last thing we are proposing would be down here, an office building for these uses. Associated with this type of request, typically there are gates involved, and that will bring us into deviations, but
Can you go back for 1 second? I did the site visit the other day. So the existing storage buildings, are those the kind of corrugated metal, very tall buildings? Those are to stay?
yes,
Okay. And this site design does not reflect what's currently on the site, correct?
only the existing storage buildings would be what is on site today that we're proposing to maintain throughout the project.
Okay.
Other than that, we're looking at an outdoor, storage area here, which kind of follows in line with those existing buildings and here.
And that will stay the gravel or whatever the?
That would be gravel.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this exhibit really shows the replanting area. As a result of the code violations previously mentioned, we are looking to mitigate some of that through replanting. This would be specific to that corner, and it would have 9 live oaks and 12 sable palms, and this would be in addition to the area, all the trees that are being preserved within that area as well. A little bit about the current conditions, as you mentioned, those are the buildings you can see there in the aerial. I want to mention that I am not the environmental consultant. We do have an ecologist here with us. One of the things that I could briefly go over, in case you have any questions, he's here to answer, but there is no indigenous located on the site, as noted throughout this flux map. It was delineated from in-field observation, and as previously mentioned, the replanting is to mitigate those violations, and that is in this quadrant here, which, as you can see, also has a significant amount of exotics. The other point to mention, and it's a little hard to see on this slide, is that there are gopher tortoise burrows down here. That area will remain undisturbed. And here you can kind of more clearly see the replanting area, which is 0.62 acres.
So which code violation is that? There were several, I think there's 7 or 8 pending, if I'm getting that correct. And when I looked over them, there were use violations, there was construction and improvements without development orders. I'm just trying to locate the replanting. Okay, so there's a specific violation that details what the replantings are going to be. So that's entirely going to take place within that northwestern corner? Okay.
Do you want to speak?
So, just to put on the record, so there's a code case, it's VIO 2022-00054. In order to comply with that code case, there's 9 live oaks and 12 sable palms need to be replanted. So that's what that slide reflects.
Okay, so this has been, you've been working with the code staff, I assume, throughout this process to ensure that this will satisfy the abatement methodology for this case?
Yes, Your Honor. We met several times in in-person meetings to go over some of the environmental stuff as well as some of the stuff that needs to be cured for code.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, these are the proposed buffers for the site. We're looking at 2 15-foot wide type D buffers along the western and the southern perimeter. As I mentioned previously on that other slide, we do have those gopher tortoises here, so that area does remain undisturbed, open space and buffered. The first deviation requested is to allow existing buildings to remain. They are currently 14 feet from the northern property line. We're looking to maintain these buildings at their location, as it would be an unreasonable burden on the applicant to demolish all of the buildings and relocate them 11 feet to the south, especially when their use is predominantly for storage, which does not generate noise. There isn't going to be much activity in this part of the IPD. The second deviation being requested is specific to the gates that I previously mentioned. When you have this kind of circulation and this specific use, gates are very common. We're looking to put gates within 78 feet between the gate and the travel lane. The code requires 100 feet. We're requesting that deviation mostly because the travel lane, which abuts this property, Bucks Lane, is not a frequently traveled road.
And are either of those the existing access right now?
I want to say Brian knows the answer to that, but I believe it is.
I was trying to orient myself when I did the site visit. You know, it's difficult when you're driving and you've got the master concept plan in one hand and you're trying to navigate the bumps that are along that road. I was trying to figure out if this is going to be completely new and you're closing that access.
Good morning, Your Honor. Brian Smith with Insight. Yeah, basically what we've done, we've taken a look at the master concept plan, and what we've done is there's a slight variation of where they are, and what we've done is line them up with access points across the street, so it's more of a straight through. So there'll be a little bit of a change in access points.
Thank you. And they'll both be gated?
They'll both be gated. They're typically, when you deal with any kind of outdoor storage, there's usually a fence or a gate involved. And the reason why the throat depth is 78 feet and it's actually okay is because usually if an RV or a boat or something gets pulled in, they can actually get off of the right of way, and they allow for the gates to open at that point.
Thank you.
The property is located in the service area for LCU on both maps 4A and 4B of the LEAP plan. Potable water lines are roughly 1,000 feet from the property. Sanitary sewer lines are not located adjacent to the property, therefore a temporary septic system is proposed. We did receive a letter of availability from LCU in 2024 specifying that they had sufficient capacity for the estimated demand. Going into LEAP plan consistency, the subject properties, the requested rezone is consistent with policy 1.1.7, the industrial development future land use section. This basically goes over what the industrial development future land use is and what kinds of projects are allowed on there and specific uses. Based off the schedule of uses that we provided, we are consistent with our underlying future land use. Objectives 1.6 is specific to special treatment areas, and we are located within the South Fort Myers Planning District. That planning district does not have a specific LEAP plan section for additional goals and policies. Objective 2.1 and Objective 2.2 are development location and development timing. As noted in the previous exhibits, specifically the surrounding land use exhibit, we can see that the surrounding properties are mostly developed, with the exception of the property to the north, showing that development location as well as timing is appropriate at this subject property. Policy 5.1.5 protects existing and future residential areas from any kinds of encroachments which are incompatible. We do not have any existing single-family uses in proximity to the subject property. As a matter of fact, it's over 1,000 feet to the north that there is low-density residential, and it is separated by a 100-foot wide drainage canal. There are also additional standards for industrial rezonings as noted in policy 7.1.1. The property is not anticipated to generate any noxious elements or require additional monitoring. Therefore, it will be able to comply with all local, state, and federal air, water, and noise pollution standards. And again, that goes back to the schedule of uses. As we can see there, we're not proposing anything that would be noxious. Similarly, when located next to residential areas, industrial must not generate noise levels incompatible with residential development. This is not necessarily applicable, but we do have a noise ordinance in Lee County which would govern any kind of disturbance past a certain time. Bulk storage or production of toxic, explosive, or hazardous material will not be permitted near residential areas. Again, not located near residential areas and not proposing any of these uses on the site. Contamination of ground or surface water will not be permitted. Again, we're not proposing any use that would contaminate ground or surface water, and in addition to that, we are required to go through an ERP pursuant to the regulations of South Florida Water Management District. Air emissions above the normal levels are not proposed to be generated. As far as impacts of environmental and natural resources, we do have the 5 gopher tortoise burrows that are located at the perimeter of the site, which are going to remain undisturbed, along with that 15-foot buffer along Bucks Lane. And effects on neighbors and surrounding land use. The surrounding land uses are mostly industrial developments. Impacts on water quality and needs. Again, we're not anticipating to impact water quality or water needs, and the project would need to go through additional permitting, including South Florida Water Management District, as well as a development order through Lee County. Employment characteristics. The uses are industrial, therefore they are supporting economic growth. We are proposing a small office in this project, so there will be employment opportunities. For fire and safety, we do meet fire and safety as depicted on the MCP. Noise and odor are not anticipated once more, and buffering and screening is proposed consistent with the LDC, which requires a 15-foot type D buffer along roadways. We are proposing along both perimeter roadways. We are not anticipating any impacts to transportation facilities. As Brian already went over the access points, I won't repeat that. But for transportation facilities, we do not meet the threshold for level of service analysis. It's not a particularly intense project. Therefore, we don't have to go through all of the LOS. There is no access to rail. I will specify that, but it does have access to Alico Road, which is classified as a county-maintained arterial roadway through Pennsylvania Street. So you take Bucks Lane down to Pennsylvania, which accesses Alico.
It was mentioned somewhere, I think, that the road is going to, but Bucks Lane is going to need to be brought up to standard. At what point does that begin and end? Is that a question for someone else?
I believe that is a question for Brian. Okay.
Again, Brian Smith for the record. Currently, Bucks Lane is, it's actually improved in front of the property, just west of it where it meets Dusty Road. And actually, west of that, it's actually not called, Bucks Lane. It's a different roadway, but that's kind of where it starts. Dusty Road is not improved, but that's kind of where that intersection where things start, being maintained or built to any kind of standard.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember where I read that in this.
It's if you go back, I can go back a couple aerials. Yeah, I can go back. Okay, that'll work. Let's see here. Where's your pointer at? Is it them?
The laser, yeah, that one.
So in front of the property itself, it's semi-improved. More than likely, we're gonna have to go through some kind of during the development order process to bring it up to more of a code, because I believe it needs to have a little bit more pavement. But at the southwest corner is when the pavement and everything kind of does not, meet standards.
So you
for
would
the
not
county.
have to do that because you're going the east direction?
We're going east, so everything right now is gonna be traveling Bucks Lane east, as well as then back down south to Alico Road.
Okay, thank you. And I think the code usually requires that just to the access point, so you wouldn't necessarily be extending it for the property.
No, we would just go from one point to the other point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let me get you back where you were. I think you're close.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Can I leave that there?
Yeah. Thank Regarding utility needs, as previously mentioned, we were provided a letter of availability from LCU regarding sewage collection and treatment. A septic system, as I mentioned, will be in place on the property until we are able to connect to sanitary sewer. So that would be a temporary solution. And then we go into the criteria section. This is the criteria by which all rezonings have to meet. Sorry, give me 1 second. The first one is that it complies with the LEAP plan. The proposed rezoning is consistent with policy 1.1.7, which is pertaining to industrial development in the future land use category. Objective 2.1 and objective 2.2, which is location and timing. Policy 5.1.5, the protection of residential areas, and goal 7, which pertains to industrial land uses. Additionally, the request has to meet the code and other applicable county regulations or qualify for deviations. We are requesting 2 deviations. The first one, of course, is to memorialize the location of the existing structures. And the second deviation would be to locate the security gate 78 feet from the adjacent travel lanes. C, that the request is compatible with existing and planned uses in the surrounding area. We mentioned previously that the surrounding area has a significant amount of industrial development, and it has access to Alico Road via Pennsylvania Street. Also, that the site will provide access sufficient to support the proposed development intensity. That is noted on the master concept plan as well. The impacts to transportation facilities will be addressed by existing county regulations and conditions of approval. As mentioned, the proposed land use intensity is only 173,600 square feet, which does not meet the LOS threshold. The expected impacts on transportation facilities will be addressed by, okay, no, I went over that. Will not adversely affect environmentally critical or sensitive areas and natural resources. We've provided an environmental report which outlines that there are no environmentally critical or sensitive areas or natural resources on this site. The gopher tortoise burrows will be left undisturbed, and no construction will occur within 25 feet of their locations. Additionally, the project must be served by urban services as defined in the LEAP plan if located in a future urban area category. Industrial is a future suburban area, and the necessary services are available to the site.
Can you just again describe, just so I'm understanding, because right now when I did the site visit, it appeared like there's several different operations that are happening, and there's like a horticultural facility maybe that looked like there was some horticultural waste maybe that was being, how is that going to, are those same uses going to be operated on the site, or everything's getting wiped off and we're starting anew?
I will let Mr. Brian Smith answer that.
Thank you.
Brian Smith for the record. You know, as Mr. Kramer already stated, that there's multiple code cases on this in terms, and one of those, or maybe a couple of those, are development without a development order. So the applicant knows that what they're going to have to do is go through a full development order to, you know, pave roads, pave, you know, access points. So they understand that this, and it could be done in phases, but the development that's there, we're probably, you know, again, part of the code cases. So those will be cleaned up as we go through the development order process.
Okay, so these actual, I'm just trying to figure out in terms of the square
Yep.
footages, because it shows enclosed, covered storage, or industrial. So are those intended to be buildings, or are they just going to be kind of, not carport, because obviously, you know, but where it's covered on the top but open on the sides, or do you have that level of development?
We don't have that level of development, but typically what you see is, you know, like you've seen on, I guess, Crystal Avenue, where there's some open storage like that. They're lean-to structures. They're typically walled in the back. Sometimes they're open. It just gives that sense of security for any kind of stored materials there. So that's kind of what, you know, applicant is thinking. But he can enclose it, or, you know, or keep it open with just a kind of lean-to structure. But we're not in that level of detail yet.
Certainly, at the development order stage, you
yes,
can
ma'am.
flesh that out. But the total square footage is, I assume, includes the existing buildings that are in the back as well as whatever these pads end up ultimately being developed as?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. That was all the questions I had for now. Thank you. I'm ready for staff whenever you're ready. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, Sharon Badamchan from the county zoning. My resume is on file. I was recognized as expert in zoning and land use issues. I would like to be recognized as such at this time.
Yes.
Sorry. Well, basically this is the request. They have 14.83 acres zoned agricultural today. They want to rezone it to IPD. The future land use designation is industrial development, so the expectation is that this place will be developed with industrial type uses. And that's basically the general location, the aerial, and as you can see, it is in the industrial land use development, and it is surrounded by urban community and industrial is to the south. And today it's zoned agricultural, but surrounded on three sides by industrial, IGIL, IPD. So it will not be out of the character to rezone it to IG2. This is the master concept plan. They are requesting 2 deviations. Staff recommends approval of 1, which is the gates being less than 100 feet. The second one that they're asking for 14 feet of perimeter setback to the north instead of 25. Staff recommends partial approval of this. Existing buildings are okay to stay where they are, but any new building must have the required setback. Also, schedule of uses, they are asking for shredding and composting of vegetative matters. Staff has a condition that if they want to use they want to have that used, they have to come back and amend the master concept plan to show the location. And because right now there isn't a place for that use on the proposed master concept plan. So if they want to keep that, they want to do that, they have to amend the master concept plan. The road is a private road, but code requires improvements to bring it up to county road, which they will do. Utilities, if they meet the threshold for water and sewer connection, they have to connect. Lines are within 1,000 feet or so. With that said, these are the 2 deviations that staff recommends approval of 1 and partial approval of the other one. And as you mentioned, there are many violations and they are trying to take care of that. This thing has been here since 2022, and now we are in 2025. With that said, they are in compliance with the plan requirements and goals and objectives and policies as mentioned in the staff report and as presented by the applicant, and they are in compliance of the land development code. So staff recommends approval of this subject to staff conditions.
On that point, the last condition you had was about a wireless communication facility needing to go through a special exception. What prompted that condition?
Well, we don't know the location, we don't know the height. I mean, usually when they say tower, they give a height or something, and here just said communications tower. We don't know what kind of tower, what height. So that's why decided that it's better to ask them to come back for the tower if they are proposing it.
So it's just because it was on the schedule of uses and you wanted to clarify the.
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you. There was no concern of that use, correct?
No, there's no concept.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we had someone walk in. Sir, did you want to, were you here for the public or for the applicant? If you wanted to speak is why I'm asking. I don't mean to, okay, thank you. We allow public opportunity in this, and so if you wanted to speak, I wanted to give you the chance. Okay, thank you. So then we'll come back to the applicant and the staff. Were there any other questions or matters we needed to put on the record before we close today?
No.